Hello everyone, I'm Tom. Today I'll be instructing you on the proper use of a spectrophotometer in our lab. First, we'll go over a little bit about how the spectrophotometer works, and then I'll show you how to use it in your experiments. To understand how the spectrophotometer works, it might be more useful to look at a diagram. Here you can see the basic outline of our instrument. We have a light source here that emits at many wavelengths, including ultraviolet, visible, and IR. The light emitted from this source then travels into a diffraction gradient, causing the light to split apart into its separate wavelengths. This separated light then travels through a small slit to our sample. The wavelength of light that makes it to the sample can be adjusted to test how various energies of light affect the sample. When the light passes through the sample, some photons are absorbed by the solution while some of the photons pass through. This is dependent on the identity and concentration of the sample. The light that passes through is then read by a detector, which allows the user to see how much of the light was absorbed. We can use the absorbance in the Beer's law equation shown here. A represents the absorbance we just acquired, B is the path length that the light has to travel through, in our case 1 centimeter cuvettes, C is the concentration of our sample, and epsilon is the extinction coefficient. The extinction coefficient is related to the amount of light absorbed for a particular sample per the amount of that sample. This value is unique for each substance, but once determined can be used for further calculations on a particular system. Here we have the materials to properly use a spectrophotometer. First, plug in the instrument and flip the switch on the back to the on position. The spectrophotometer needs at least 5 minutes of time to warm up and ensure that the internal light source has stabilized. You should see the LCD readout display the absorbance reading and the wavelength the instrument is transmitting through the sample. We can change the value read from percent transmittance to absorbance by hitting the left and right arrows. Usually absorbance is more useful for experiments, so it is good to leave it on this setting. Pressing up and down on the instrument will adjust the wavelength of light that is sent through our sample. You will need to set this to the appropriate wavelength for the experiment you are running, as detailed in your lab manual. The samples then need to be prepared for analysis in the spectrophotometer. To do this, a cuvette must first be washed with a small amount of the sample to prevent contamination. Once this is done, the cuvette can be filled to 3/4 full. The same procedure should be followed for a blank solution, the composition of which will be mentioned in your lab manual. For this demonstration, we are simply using water. Once you are finished preparing the cuvettes, you will first calibrate the instrument. To do this, take the blank cuvette and wipe any fingerprints or smudges off with a chem wipe. Then insert the cuvette, ensuring that the small triangle indicating the front of the cuvette is facing the path of the light source, in this case left to right in this instrument. Once inserted, shut the door to ensure no external light will interfere with the detector and press the Cal button. You should see the absorbance reading change to 0. Now that this has been done, we can insert the sample. First, wipe off the cuvette to remove any smudges or fingerprints. Insert the sample while ensuring it is facing the correct direction with the clear sides towards the beam path. Shut the spectrophotometer door and then record the absorbance reading in your notebook. Once this is done, simply remove the sample and continue with the experiment. If the experiment requires that you take multiple absorbance readings over time, you will need to calibrate using the blank regularly to ensure the best data. Any cuvettes that were used should be washed thoroughly with distilled water and dried. When you are finally finished with the spectrophotometer, it can be shut off and unplugged. Following these directions should give you a basic instruction on how to use the spectrophotometer in our general chemistry laboratory.